Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan Ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Our superhuman expectations or aspirations, are they sustainable? Is there a need to talk about superhuman potential and sustainability, even in the way as though somehow they were two ends of a spectrum? You know, the way the question was asked, it sounds like these superhuman aspirations are somehow not sustainable, not reasonable. And that in order to be sustainable or reasonable, or loving and gentle and kind and compassionate with yourself, that you need to aspire less. And I don't think that's true. But here's what's important. It's very important to understand the difference between what we are expecting and what we are aspiring toward. Because an expectation tends to be something that when we don't achieve it, we're miserable. We expect of ourselves, we expect of others. But not only do we expect, we have a sense of entitlement to that expectation being fulfilled. So if I expect of you that you are going to treat me a certain way, you're going to be really nice, really loving, really patient, really caring, really generous, and then you're not, I end up getting very frustrated, very angry, not only at your lack of tenderness or caring or gentleness, but that's compounded by this crushing of my expectation. Because not only did I expect it of you, but I also had this sense of an entitlement to that expectation being fulfilled. So I expect you should act like this, and I feel entitled to you fulfilling that expectation. So when you don't, I am miserable. And the same thing is true when we expect of ourselves. When we expect that we should be able to achieve something, do something. And along with that expectation is this sense that it must happen. And then when it doesn't happen, we are miserable. And by the way, that misery is what saps our energy much more than the time that we spend actually working. People think it's the work that makes you tired, or it's the work that you need a break from. It depends what you do, but what I've seen on a personal level, and here we are 7 days a week, 365 days a year on. And what I've seen is fatigue, tiredness, exasperation It's not from the work itself, regardless of how many hours it is. It's from the attachment to the expectation of what is going to come from the work. That's what makes you really tired. And so if you have superhuman aspirations, wonderful. You are superhuman. This is what all of our scriptures keep reminding us. You are divine. The divine lives within us, that power of the divine. We have so much potential, so much more potential than any of us is fulfilling. And in what direction? It's not about necessarily a potential for, if I decided, this is my favorite example, if I decided that I wanted to be the star of the Los Angeles Lakers basketball team. Now, you don't have to be superhuman. There's plenty of humans who are stars of basketball teams. And if I decided that that was my aspiration, I could work and work and train and train. But I'm going to be 50 in a week. I'm about 5'3", in pretty good shape, but not the shape that basketball stars are. There's pretty much no chance in a million years that the LA Lakers or any other basketball team for that matter are going to recruit me, hire me, and make me the star of their team. Now, if I'm attached to that, when it doesn't happen, I'm going to be miserable. But here's the key. That superhuman element within myself is not about suddenly making myself 25 years old and 6'5". The superhumanness in myself is the ability to know that regardless of the shape and the size of this body, regardless of its particular skills, its particular abilities, who I am is divine. That's the superhumanness of us. And in that awareness, there is so much we can achieve. When we really put our minds to it, when we really get our egos out of the way, get our expectations out of the way, because that's what saps our energy. Get all of the nonsense in our mind out of the way. Negativities, comparisons, judgment. Most of our minds are so full of negativity toward others, toward the world around us, toward our own selves. We're constantly judging, condemning, comparing, and we don't even realize how much energy and time that actually takes from us that we could be using to achieve these wonderful aspirations that we have, these wonderful goals that we have. So when we free ourselves of that energy sapping, time sapping habit of complaining and comparing and negativity and judging and being stuck in yesterday and tomorrow, we've actually got so much more energy, so much more time, so much more focus. These days, all over the world, life coaches are teaching people how to get in the flow. That's the big thing these days, how to get in the flow. So whatever you are, how to find your flow. And that flow state is that state in which time stops, right? You forget to eat. You forget it's time to go to bed. You forget everything because you're in a state of flow. And it's found in people of every walk of life. Normally, we tend to think of it just for like athletes or musicians. But it's not. These days, most of the programs are actually for people in business, people running companies, entrepreneurs. But what's key about the flow state is, in order to get into that state, I'm not comparing, I'm not judging, I'm not complaining, I'm not in yesterday, I'm not in tomorrow, I'm only in this particular work that I'm doing. And it doesn't matter what it is. I could be doing data entry. I could be on my 1,785th piece of data that I'm entering that day. I could be composing a piece of music. I could be making dinner. I could be working on a prototype for some new invention. I could be stuffing envelopes. I could be teaching school. I could be building websites. I could be doing anything. As long as I'm fully engaged in it, I can hit that state of flow. And that's the state in which not only do we actually achieve those superhuman potentials, but actually the work becomes joy. And by the way, to actually be able to live in joy, to live in peace, to live blossoming every day, that is way more of a superhuman type of goal than anything else that we could possibly achieve today but lose tomorrow. And of course, that's the nature of things in this world. Success today, failure tomorrow, praise today, criticism tomorrow. That's the nature of how the world works. So yes, be a superhuman. You are a superhuman. We have beautiful mantras and teachings and so much to remind us that. And remember that in order for that to be sustainable, it's not about the hours. It's not about anything, the energy output. It's much more about the mind. The mind is going to make you tired. The mind is going to drain you. And tragically, the mind is going to prevent you from being able to achieve those superhuman goals, whatever it may be. So the balance between superhuman and sustainable is actually taking care of our own minds. Because when we find that state of flow, it's superhuman and it's sustainable. So that becomes the key. And lastly, along with that, remembering self-love, self-compassion is so important. And this is where our love and our compassion for ourselves must be hooked not into what we achieve, but into the state of our being while we are attempting to achieve it. So it's not about how far did I get. It's not about how much data did I enter, or how perfect was the meal, or how brilliant was the composition of music, or how many envelopes did I stuff. It's about how was my mind, how was my heart while I was doing it. And what you'll find really interestingly is when the heart and the mind are in alignment, the actual work not only becomes much, much more successful, but you don't even know how it happened. You kind of open your eyes and, oh my God, it's done. Open your eyes in this magic. Open your eyes in this miracle. because it came through you rather than from you. When things are trying to come from us and we're squeezing them and pulling them, then it's all perspiration. But when it's coming through us, then it's much more inspiration than perspiration. And a little bit of perspiration is good. They say sweat detoxes us. So a little bit of sweat is very good for everyone. But the vast majority should be the inspiration with just the right amount of perspiration.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Alaya, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit rain.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. When you speak about meditation, and especially when it comes in a question like, is meditation the only way? It typically refers to that which we do. With our eyes closed, we're seated. Hands are like this, or hands are like that, or however we're sitting. But meditation is not only what we do sitting on our mat. Yes, the seated practice is very important. For people for whom closing the eyes is difficult, people with a lot of anxiety sometimes, a lot of tension, a lot of restlessness, or a lot of trauma, find it very difficult to sit and close the eyes. That's okay. They can actually be kind of just gently half opened, sort of looking out at a place just in front of you, kind of on the ground. But also, if you find that sitting, even with the eyes gently open, is still not something you can do for any period of time, you can do walking meditation. Ideally, walk on grass. Ideally, do it barefoot, or sand, dirt. Put your bare feet on Mother Earth, but literally feel the way that the feet are walking, and just be aware of your breath. If we're going to maintain a state of awareness all the time, as the question asked, yes, meditation is the way, because it is meditation that teaches us how to bring our awareness into the present moment. But if for whatever reason someone's allergic to the idea of meditation, and we see that sometimes. There are people with allergies to God, people with allergies to religion, people with allergies to meditation. And it happens because typically in our childhood, we've had some sort of experience where in the name of God, or in the name of religion, or in the name of our church, or our temple, or our mosque, or our gurdwara, we had some very traumatic experience, or something bad happened. And so we find that we kind of bristle at that. Or a lot of times people expected something of God, and it didn't happen. A loved one died. A loved one who shouldn't have died so young. They feel like God abandoned them. So people have that sort of allergy to God. People who were raised by very, very spiritually inclined, yoga inclined parents may go through a period of their life, as so many people do, where we kind of rebel against everything our parents did. I've been in many youth sessions with youth who are like, I don't want to hear about meditation. I don't want to hear about yoga. It's all my parents tell me I should do. Meditate, do yoga, chant mantras. So in that very normal, very natural kind of rebellion against the parental way, you see people pushing back against it. And so if for whatever reason someone has an allergy to the word meditation, you don't have to call it that. You can just call it awareness. You can call it consciousness. Call it mindfulness. It's about bringing the mind to the present moment. Remember, we're talking about how to live in awareness all the time. Well, it's just about what I focus on. I have an option. Right now, my mind could focus on, I could focus on this beautiful image of Mahalakshmi. And I could just forget that all of you people are sitting here. I could forget that the camera's on, and I could just be totally immersed in Mahalakshmi. Or I could become totally immersed in my own hand. Or I could just look out at all of you and be so happy to see you and forget that I was supposed to be giving satsang. Wherever we put the mind actually is very good at staying there, briefly. Doesn't stay for long, but it stays for just a quick moment. Now, the practice becomes putting the mind where we want it to be. So living in consciousness, living in awareness is bringing our mind into the present moment. So while I'm sitting here, if my mind is saying, I wonder what's for dinner. Boy, it's been a long time since lunch. Or, oh yeah, wait, I have to meet this person after satsang. Or, oh, God, I wonder how that friend from my school is doing. Well, then I'm not here. I'm in yesterday. Or 40 years ago. Or I'm in dinner. I'm not here. I'm not in the present. So the practice of mindfulness is simply bringing the mind back to the present moment. When we speak about living in awareness, it is that I am living conscious every moment, every minute. I'm walking. Can I be aware of the act of walking? I'm eating. Can I be aware of the act of eating? When we practice meditation, we watch the breath, we merge our awareness into it. Because then we become aware, present with the breath. And yeah, the mind wanders, we bring it back. It wanders, we bring it back. And meditation is a great practice for life. Because as you learn to do it in meditation, you learn to do it when your eyes are open and you're moving around. So staying aware means every minute, every moment, I am aware, not just of what I'm doing, but I'm aware of the I who is doing it. And that's the second step of awareness. Step one is I'm aware of what I'm doing. So walking, I'm aware that I'm walking. Eating, aware that I'm eating. Just awareness of eating. Speaking, awareness of speaking. Breathing, awareness of breathing. But then you take it a step deeper. Can I be aware? Can I be anchored in the one who is aware that I'm aware that I'm eating? Can I be watching, not just myself eating, but can I be watching the awareness, aware of the awareness that I am eating? And meditation is, I have found, a much easier place to start this than as you move through the world. It just is harder to get into that depth as you're moving through the world. But as you meditate, you're breathing. Then you are aware of the breathing. But can you also be the one who is aware of the awareness that you're breathing? And that takes us into an even deeper level. So yes, you can be aware the whole time. And you don't have to call the practice meditation. You can call it mindfulness, call it consciousness, call it gentle awareness. But the practice is the same, which is to keep bringing the mind back, bringing it back, bringing it back to that present moment, and then bringing it back to awareness itself. So ultimately we get to the point where instead of being aware of eating, we are aware of awareness. And that becomes the beautiful state. I am aware of awareness. But we begin by being aware of all of what we're doing and experiencing and feeling.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. The mind is not the enemy. And you're right. The questioner's right. It's a very dangerous place to go. Because at the end of the day, who do I go to bed with? My own mind. Who do I wake up with? My own mind. Who do I shower with? My own mind. Who's on the toilet with me? My own mind. So no matter how close you may be to a husband, a wife, a mother, a father, a child, a best friend, chances are they're not on the toilet with you. The mind is. Wherever you go, the mind is there. And so for us to make the mind the enemy actually sets us up to live in this state of misery and frustration, because we are literally carrying around our enemy. It's like if you think about in this world, throughout your life, who has ever been your worst enemy? Not your mind, but an actual human being. Who has ever been, maybe in school days, maybe someone in the office, but who has ever been your worst enemy? Now imagine if that person were surgically connected to you, like they became your Siamese twin. And every time you turned over in the night, that person's face was right there. Imagine what life would be like. So when we make the mind the enemy, it literally is like being connected like a Siamese twin to your worst enemy. That's the stuff that great misery is made of. And so we absolutely should not think of the mind as the enemy. We need to understand that the mind is doing only what the mind has been programmed to do. The mind has taken in all of the experiences of this life. And if you believe in past lives and sanskaras, karma from the past, all of those impressions as well from past lives, even all of those impressions that we're not even consciously aware of. There are people whose minds are impacted today by their experience being born, their experience coming out of the womb. There's all kinds of therapy that actually works with people going back to the trauma of being born. So even things that we don't remember consciously have impacted our minds. There's beautiful scriptural stories of children being born who have listened to katha being recited while they were in utero. One of the teachings of our culture is when you're pregnant, you should always be sure listen to holy things, beautiful teachings, because absolutely the fetus gets it. So our mind is being actually impacted by things that we're not even consciously aware of. All of the experiences. And then it is doing its best to serve us. And this is a very important point. Your mind is created to serve you. All of the nonsense that our ego does, all of the games our ego plays with us, actually are there on the core, deepest level. Because the mind thinks that that is what we need. So for example, do you ever hear your mind saying, don't even try that, you're too stupid to be able to do it? Don't even try that, you're worthless, you'll fail. Now, on the surface, we look at that and we say, that is an enemy. Otherwise, who would tell us that? But on the deepest level, our mind actually thinks that by telling us this, it is protecting us. That our mind actually thinks that we are worthless. Our mind thinks that we are stupid. And so it's telling us this to protect us from failure and humiliation and embarrassment, our mind thinks, let me remind her of how incapable she is, how stupid she is, how worthless she is, so that she doesn't try something and make a fool of herself. Now you could think, well, where would my mind get that idea? Well, it got it because during our lives, people tell us that. They don't mean to harm us. Usually they just mean to discipline us. Parents, teachers. But in that disciplining, bad boy, bad girl, stupid, this, that, they withdraw love. Sometimes kids get spanked, they get hit, sent to their room with no dinner for bad report cards. We constantly get this messaging that we're not good enough, we're not good enough. And so our minds just start giving us back what's been fed into them, what's been programmed into them, mostly in the first 7, 10, 12 years of our childhood. And it tries, in this child's mind, it tries to make the most sense of what the situation is. And then it tries to protect us. So for example, if you find that you can't trust, that you're not good with relationships, that you keep sabotaging relationships or not able to trust, well, chances are that's because at some point in your life, you got hurt. And the mind thinks it's being your friend, it thinks it's being your ally by telling you, don't trust them. Bad person, stay away. By keeping you alone. By keeping you sheltered, by keeping you armored up and protected. It thinks it's helping you. But of course we know it's not. So recognize that the mind is not the enemy. It's just, in most cases, stuck in early childhood. It's doing the best that a young child can do in circumstances that it's given that may not be ideal for the best development. So instead of thinking of the mind as an enemy, understand that it's your friend, trying its best, but the mind has become like the friend who knows that you love chocolate cake, so keeps trying to give it to you, even without knowing that you've become diabetic. And so it keeps trying to give you this chocolate cake, and now the chocolate cake is killing you. And the mind keeps saying, eat, eat, you love it. But you're dying. And this is where the other really important part of the mind is there, which is it can be changed. We're not stuck with it. It can be changed. Remember, it's there trying to help us. But it functions in patterns. It's seated in the very physical brain, which is chemical, it's electrical. Literally, we say in neurology, neurons that fire together, wire together. It means patterns that have happened in my life. I'm going to kind of keep creating these. I'm going to keep experiencing that. Whether we think of it as Pavlov's dogs, whether we think of it as fear of certain things, certain behavioral patterns, but it is changeable. And it's actually quite easy to change. It takes time. We didn't get this pattern overnight. The mind didn't develop in 24 hours. But it absolutely can be changed. Meditation changes your brain, not just your mind, your brain. Yoga. All of these powerful spiritual practices change our brain and our mind. So This is the power of the spiritual practice. Change what your mind is saying to you. If right now I tell you, okay, in your mind, I want you all to yell love. Okay? In your mind, everybody yell love. Did you hear it? Huh? Anybody couldn't hear it in their mind? So see, you can do it. You actually have the control to tell your mind what to think, what to say. But we just don't utilize it. But the moment that you decide, I am going to consciously tell my mind what to say, you can do it. And so every time that you find that your mind is running away from you, just shout, love, in your mind. Or shout peace. Or shout clean slate, start over. Whatever it may be. But just grab that control and know that with enough time, with enough practice, you can change it.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. We all feel anger, anxiety, frustration when things don't go the way that we want them to. When people around us don't act the way we want them to. When the universe doesn't move according to how we want it to. We all feel that anger, that anxiety, that frustration. And then, of course, there's the anxiety to make people act how we want them to. There's anxiety of, will they do it? Can I mold people? Can I mold situations to be the way I want them to be, so that I don't feel angry and anxious? And this is actually where most of us run and ruin our lives. We run throughout our lives trying to get everything around us to do what we want. You should behave how I want. You should behave how I want. You should be how I want. Because then I will be okay inside. And the truth is, that's really selling yourself very short. The message that gives to your own mind is, you are so weak, you are so small, and you are so shallow that you actually need people around you to act in a certain way in order for you to be happy. Hence, You move through your life trying to get them to do what you want. But this idea is really selling yourself short. You are not weak. You are not small. You don't need the world to dance according to your tune in order for you to be okay. You have within you the strength actually to stay grounded, anchored, peaceful, happy, regardless of what happens in the world. So stop giving yourself that message that says, hey, weak one, you better do something about that person because otherwise you're going to get anxious. Otherwise you're going to get angry. If you don't make them do what you want, you're going to fall apart. You are not going to fall apart. Even if no one ever does what you want. You have that ability to stay anchored and grounded in peace, in love. That is your nature. And so when we feel that anger and we feel that anxiety, obviously the anger and the anxiety is problematic anyway, but it also creates this other problem because it's telling us, it's like this voice in our head that's like, quick, 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 do something. Imagine for a moment that someone put a pillowcase over your head, or they held your head underwater and you couldn't breathe. What would you do? I'm sorry?
You would die.
Well, eventually you die, but no, you're right, you absolutely eventually would die, but in the 1 minute or 2 minutes, depending on how long you can hold your breath, before you die, what would you do?
We'll try to release ourselves.
You'll try to release yourself, exactly. You will fight. You will fight tooth and nail, regardless of who it is. You will fight as hard as you can to get that pillowcase off your head, to get your head up from under the water. You will be prepared to kill that person if you need to. Even those of us who are very peaceful by nature. If someone had a pillowcase over my head and they were suffocating me to death, I have no doubt that I would find within me the ability to do whatever I needed to do to hurt them however much I needed to get that pillowcase off my head so I could live. Because we need oxygen to live. But when people don't do what we want, and they don't act the way we want, most of us fight the same way. We fight their choice of words, their choice of actions, their choice of clothing, their choice of how to live their lives. We fight that with as much vigor, as much energy, as much strength, as much anger as we would fight someone to get their hands off our heads if they were holding us underwater. Because we have convinced ourselves that we need their obedience to live. That we need people to do what we want in order to live. And so, people dancing according to our tune has become as vital to us as oxygen. And that is where you're selling yourself short. You do need oxygen. By all means, if someone's trying to drown you, fight them with your whole life. But the next time that you become angry and anxious just because people are not doing what you want, instead of thinking about that person, instead of focusing your attention on that person, focus your attention on your own mind and say, hey, buddy, for God's sakes, I am not that weak. I don't need to waste my time figuring out how to convince this guy to do what I want, how to convince this lady to act the way I want, because I don't need it for my life. I can breathe regardless of what they are doing. And so you take a moment. You have to just literally yell in your mind, stop. Because your mind is just trying to figure out how to get them to do what I want. Through anger, through yelling, through manipulation, through sulking, through the silent treatment, through bribery, through threats, right? We kind of try everything. It's like the machine gun approach. Is this one going to work? Is that going to work? If my volume of anger doesn't work, will my tears work? If my tears don't work, will my bribery work? Will something work? And as you're doing that, you need to just yell to yourself, literally in your mind, just stop. Then you need to stop. And you simply need to recognize within yourself that you're okay. That you can breathe. That regardless of what that person is saying or doing, your breath is flowing. You can live. So there's no reason to lose yourself in trying to make the world do what you want, which is the source of your anger and the source of your frustration. Just stop. Stop selling yourself short and tell yourself, hey mind, stop selling me short. Stop trying to convince me that I am that weak, that shallow, that I cannot survive this person being rude or obnoxious to me, that I cannot survive this person ignoring me, that I cannot survive this person doing that which I don't want. I am not that weak. And when that awareness really anchors, then every time that anger and frustration arises, you realize this is a colossal waste of time and a colossal waste of energy and a colossal shortchanging of my own self. And I'm going to stop these lies to myself right here and right now, because I am much stronger than that. Let them do what they want. I'm here. I'm still here. I don't need to change them. And that's perhaps one of the most important realizations you'll ever have.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.